Hey, yo, welcome back to the Boston Sports Brothers podcast. You got Biggie, you got Kraz, you got Gabe, and you got myself. We're talking the last 2 weeks in Boston sports. We took a week off for the holidays. Gentlemen, how were your holidays? Did you enjoy the Christmas time spirit?
Happy holidays, Plotty.
Happy
Loved every
holidays.
minute of it.
Happy
Happy
holidays,
holidays,
friends.
boys.
Yeah.
Yes,
Happy
and
holidays to all.
listeners.
Yes.
So sixth night of Hanukkah for our fellow friends and Jews out there, and Christmas time was great with significant others. Great parties, great. The amount of food I ate over the last couple days has just been outrageous. But thankfully, there's always a gym nearby to work it off the next day.
Not to
So,
mention all the driving back and forth, back
oh
and
yeah,
forth.
Oh yeah.
lot of schlepping, during the holidays. Not
Yiddish word of the day, schlep,
schlep.
to move.
To move. Yeah, can you use it in a sentence, please?
Oh, I gotta schlep all the way down Route 9 to get my schmear.
Wait, you mean we got to move this guy in? We got to schlep this stuff up 4 flights?
Yeah, and then you're gonna bang your head on the U-Haul as you walk out and are unloading things to get it up
Isn't
those
that an
four
insult
flights.
too? Like you call someone a schlepper or something
You
like that?
schlep.
A
Oh, you
slooper. That's
No,
a
schlep.
that's a
slooper.
schlub. That's a schlub.
No, that's a
Slump.
slooper.
All
Slooper.
right, all right.
Oh, what about
You can
schmagegi? That was a
All
good
right,
one
we've
too.
devolved. We've devolved.
you can catch your Yiddish podcast at another time. But let's shift the focus to Boston sports. That's a great way to start off, honestly, after a few weeks not together. But the Patriots, who have played 2 games and have completely unraveled here. Kraz, you've been talking about, what you've wanted to see out of them this season, and if something goes one way or
Yeah.
the other, that it'll be time to react. I think it's time to react. So floor is open. Really, there's not much to get to in terms of the games. It's really what do we do from here, given the position that we're in. So that's the topic of conversation with the Patriots. Who wants to kick it off, and we'll just kick it around.
I mean, do we talk about draft positioning first? Do we talk about
No,
personnel management?
let's talk about the
The
coaching and the
team.
team, and just like the draft. We'll talk draft in a bit because that's a separate conversation. But the state of the team as it currently stands, does next week mean anything? And after next week, because let's be honest, there's decisions to be made in some way, shape, or form in terms of the coaching staff and front office of this team. So let's start with that.
I mean, I'm
I,
probably going to be wrong, but I think Gerard's gone. I just, like I said from one of the first episodes, I think that he was hired too quickly. I think he's in way over his head. He has no idea what he's doing at all. He's telling the press that he's going to start one running back and then starts another running back. I mean, at this point, I actually genuinely feel bad for the guy. They're probably going to bring him back just because of that's just the nature of how things kind of go here, and he'll get round two. But I mean, I don't know. It's tough. Boys, what do you think?
I mean, if they do bring him back, I don't think it will be in the head coach position. I think it might be in a more maybe limited role, maybe back down to a defensive role or something kind of more in the background. People say he's more of like a CEO type than a head coach, so maybe you'll find him kind of doing more management stuff. Um, but for me, I think the only thing you can really do here is either clear house or just kind of continue on with developing what you have, and that's including coaching and players and everything like that. So, in my opinion, I think they need to clear house completely and kind of start over. But I don't know what you think about that one.
first off, I don't think there's much to be gained on Sunday against the Bills, even if the Bills rest a bunch of their starters, which they might, right? I think Mitch Trubisky is still going to kick our butt, right? So I'm not really worried about like winning on Sunday. That's not a thing for me. I do think in general, I was all aboard Mayo probably coming back for a second year. And I think the last 5 or 6 weeks since that Bears game have just shown me the ineptitude. The end of the Colts game, the game against Chargers, some of the ineptitude against the Bills, other games. We could find other examples. Really, his only great game this year was the Bengals, which was the first game. Um, I think it's more likely than anything that they part ways because I'm pretty sure he's going to get paid all that money if he gets fired. I can't see him stepping back into a defensive role with the team that he was just with. So I do think, yeah, like So I don't. When I say I think he's fired, I'd put it at like 75%. And the reason why I'm going to give still a little bit of hope is there's a lot of things that they can do to add to the coaching staff, add more veteran type coaches to help Mayo if they choose to do that for year two. Like if you look at all the staffs across the NFL, the Patriots have like some of the least amount of coaches compared to other programs. So the Crafts could also open up their pocketbook, not just by signing players this offseason, but if not just a head coach, if they decide to go that route, whatever they decide to do with the head coaching position, they need to add more coaches to the staff. I think that's the biggest thing that they can do from a coaching standpoint. Obviously, getting someone like Vrabel, I think, would make a huge difference. Someone who has experience, someone who
Experience.
has been around, and I think that's the key word here is you need someone with experience, head coaching experience to come in. I just don't know if Vrabel is going to be available to us. There are going to be a lot of great situations out there, and if I'm Vrabel, I don't think I'm just going to look at the Patriots and say, well, I played there, and there's some sentimentality to that, but there's going to be better situations for him out there in the league. So I think
Yeah.
it's honestly a pipe dream to think that we're going to get him.
Are there though?
There's other roles. There's the Bears are going to be open, the Raiders are going to be open.
Yeah.
Here might be open, the Giants might be open. There's going to be 5 or 6
Jacksonville's
roles.
open.
So
Yeah,
you
there's a
have
lot.
so when you think about that, and here's the
Dallas.
thing, going back to the coaching situation, it's this fork in the road, right? Like you either blow it up and you got to start fresh, and the or you have to enhance this coaching staff with experience on the coaching staff. Draw Mayo, first year head coach, AVP, first year offensive coordinator, Demarcus Covington, first year defensive coordinator. No experience on the staff, so they're, as Sam said off the top, they're in over their head. Like they're just outclassed and outmanned in every sort of way from a X's and O's standpoint, from a personnel management standpoint. And so the what this comes down to is what do the Crafts want to do? Like, do they really want to run this back? Because here's my fear is that if they do run it back and they even infuse a little bit of more experience into this coaching staff and front office, it's not going to change the foundation of what's there. Like this is still good. We're going to be sitting here at this point next season, maybe a 5 or 6 win team if they have some sort of improvement. But let's make no mistake, they are worse than they were last year by a lot, by a lot.
Mhm.
And this team is inconsistent as Gerard Mayo's fucking comments after games. 1 week they come out, go against the Bills, have a competitive game, still make some boneheaded plays to lose it. And Saturday was just a complete no-show. A team that was mentally checked out from wanting to play out the rest of the season and get anything out of these next couple games, which goes back to Mayo. He's lost the team. They don't care anymore.
Yeah, some of the comments by Keon White, to that Karen Garesian friend of the pod, had in a great article the other day.
Hello, Karen.
Yeah, hello, Karen, our
Our
sister.
sister.
Um, and basically he was saying like, he's not sure he wants to be here. He's not sure that like, he talked, she asked him about the coaching and just like, if it's good coaching and, he really had no comment. Like Keon White, from all intents and purposes, from what I've seen from him, is like straight up business-like. And I feel like he is starting to get pissed off here because he feels like he's not being used properly and that's starting to hurt his bottom line. And, for a guy who's all business, I can understand that. And you risk alienating players. I think Keon White is one of the better players we have on defense, who's a young emerging player, but we're doing a good job of alienating him. And if we're alienating him, there's other players in the locker room that we're alienating as well.
And yeah, Eric, you do bring up a good point with Keon White because he's been kind of out in public recently saying that, changes do need to be made. And if there are any changes to the coaching staff, I would say it starts on the defensive end. The defensive coach Covington is just having a brutal
Terrible.
year. Yeah, terrible, brutal year. Dante Hightower, linebacker coach. I mean, the linebackers are. I mean, he doesn't have the most talent maybe to work with, but he's also proven maybe not to be. I mean, he's also a first year coach, so that's what we're talking about here. Is with you're pairing a first year potential stud quarterback with all these rookie gross head coaches that don't fucking know what they're like really doing in the roles that they're in right now. And that's just going to delay the rebuild. And it's like, do you want to slug through this rebuild for 2, 3, 4 years now, or do you want to kind of press the reset button now, take care of it now, and maybe next year you'll see some improvements, and in 2 years you'll be kind of maybe getting back to that playoff level.
Yeah, the Crafts have to do something here, and I don't think that they sit there. Obviously, they don't. You've seen the reactions from them in the press box the past couple weeks in terms of how they feel about the game. So it's up to them in terms of what they do in terms of the situation. So it'll be interesting. Look, there's going to be something to talk about when it comes to the Patriots in this offseason. It's just not
Uh,
the things you want to be talking about. And
yeah,
one other thing I had no. If you had predicted this at the beginning of the season, that we'd be talking here on December 30th with the Patriots in position for the #1 overall draft pick, I would say, boy, must have been a really fucking terrible season, which it has been. But let's shift our talk a little bit to the draft, Gabe. You put a couple players here in terms of both offense and defense, and what obviously there's a bunch of scenarios
yeah, a lot.
in terms of what they can do here. So let's talk a little bit draft in terms of the Patriots and break down who's available to them and
I
we're
just I
probably going to pick in the top five, but go ahead.
I just want to go back real quick. Our friend Matt McCarthy's been on the radio lately more than usual, just because Felger and Maz and all those guys kind of take off for the holidays. He had the Crafts ranked as the last organization out of the four major teams in Boston, and it's just because they have the money, but they don't spend it. And
The
that's been
punishments,
another issue. Yeah,
How the
I mean
mighty have
they.
fallen.
for
Yeah.
real.
So it's like, and the Patriots have been notorious. They're known not to spend money, and they've had success not spending money. So it's probably hard to kind of break with those values. But I mean, it's a new regime in New England, and you got to start kind of emptying your pockets, kind of just like we talked about John Henry and the Red Sox. I just wanted to bring that up. They're like
Yeah, for
they don't
sure.
spend any money at all.
Well, and I think that's the key part because we're about to talk about the draft, but I think, not to get too far ahead of it, but free agency is going to come right before that. And I think one thing that we all need to see from them is opening up the checkbook and signing players, someone like a T. Higgins, for example. And, there are other players out there that are going to be on the market that would be nice additions for our team. We need to make sure that we fill some of these holes through that medium as well as what we're going to do through the draft. So we can
Travis
segue
Hunter
back to the draft.
potentially. I
I
mean,
mean, we
we
could.
talked T. Higgins. You could get, pay for a great receiver. T. Higgins has had a great year. But like segueing to the draft now, it looks like the Patriots might end up with that #1 pick. I mean, depending on the outcome of next week's game, or yeah, next week's game against Buffalo. Um, the Patriots look like they're kind of in position here to get that #1 draft pick, and Travis Hunter is sitting kind of pretty right there. He's kind of mentioned saying he wanted to play with Drake May. He's a two-way stud playing cornerback and wide receiver, so that's enticing in itself. Heisman Trophy winner, so he's got all the accolades in a draft that's kind of maybe not as good as drafts of the past. And if you have a generational player kind of sitting right there in your lap, I think you have to make that draft. You have to make that pick. It's kind of what happened with Drake May this year. They're sitting pretty at #3, and Drake May just kind of falls into their lap, and look how that turned out. So. I'm high on Travis Hunter. I think he brings, hopefully wouldn't bring like a dramatic like effect or some drama to Foxboro, but maybe that's what Foxboro needs right now. Um, but I'm curious to think what you guys would do with that #1, potentially #1 pick.
Well, I mean, knowing the Patriots, they're probably gonna fuck it up and they're gonna win next week, and they'll end up with the #2 or #3 pick. But it's tough. I mean, my guts kind of always been. I mean, for this team to move anywhere to even uh, be able to use Travis Hunter to the abilities that he has. You can't do that without having an offensive line, as I've kind of said all year long, and that's really the biggest area of need for this team. If they don't, at least make some moves, whether it's with with the pocketbook and signing an offensive lineman, getting a new offensive line coach, doing something to protect Drake May back there. It, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter who we throw out on the field. They're not going to have enough time to do what they need to do for Drake to throw them the ball. So, I would like. I mean, yeah, it would be great to have, like you said, Gabe. He's a one in a lifetime kind of a talent. But at the same time, it's like, well, what does this team really need at this moment? I mean, yeah, there are other teams out there that, I saw this mock trade of like, I think it was like six different picks and like a first rounder and two second rounders from the Giants for the number one pick. And it's like, well, you jump on that. And it's like, yeah, for this team to go anywhere and for them to actually rebuild. And if they're going to do this the right way, I think that's what they have to do, unfortunately.
Um, I'll chime in here real quick. So, would I love to get Travis Hunter? Yeah, of course I would. Do I want to draft him at number one? No. Someone wants Cam Ward. Someone wants Shador Sanders. One of those teams out there is going to make a trade. And, the longer the draft process goes, the closer to the lead up, these teams are going to fall more and more in love with these quarterbacks. I know that last year, this past draft was crazy with the six being taken, but there are some really quarterback needy teams out there in this league, and there's only so many top tier quarterbacks that are going to go in this league. So I think we're in a great position to acquire assets, whether that's through the Giants, through the Raiders, through another team, maybe someone like the Titans. I don't know whichever team is going to be dumb enough and desperate enough, but one of those teams is going to fall in love with the quarterback, and we're going to reap getting assets. I think not this year's draft. This year's draft is pretty weak for a lot of positions. Just overall, which is part of the reason why I want to draft offensive linemen, but I'm not drafting an offensive lineman in the top five or even top 10 because they're not considered those types of talent in this draft. So I'm going to acquire talent and punt a little bit towards next year where the draft class is supposed to be amazing. And if you get one of those teams that, is terrible next year, then you acquire the ability to get that number one pick again and potentially get Arch Manning as another trade chip. Hopefully that's not someone that we really need at that point because I think Drake May is the guy, but that's, an interesting position to be in for next year. So that's what I would do with the pick. And, candidly, if we trade down to like three, Travis Hunter could still be there, which is crazy. So we could walk away with him and get extra picks just for, the cost of doing business.
What I want them to get creative with the pick if they have the one pick. And what I mean by that is, can they go out and trade the pick to move down, but also acquire a position of need in an actual player in the pit with the swap of moving down? Like, is there an offensive lineman? Is there a middle linebacker like a Roquan Smith that was available or a
I saw
Montez
one.
Sweat? Like, can they do something along those lines to bolster, youth, but also bring in a position of need somehow? So I don't trust Elliott Wolf to do that
I
or to,
know.
I saw an interesting one actually. It was with the Raiders. It was getting the Raiders first rounder this year, next year, and the second rounder for this current year or the current draft, and getting Max Crosby. So you basically punt the first rounder, 1 year. You get their second rounder this year, which candidly, I'd probably punt that again towards next year. Why not just, where there's a deeper draft class? But getting Max Crosby would be kind of interesting to go
And
along with another first and a second.
that's the thing. Yeah, that first round draft pick is gonna open doors to potentially bring in talent to the team as well in a trade. You don't just have to get draft picks in return. You can get somebody like Max Crosby, which would be that would be crazy. He's
I'm,
an incredible player.
I,
But yeah, that I mean that deal sounds wonderful in a fantasy land, but or
when the
on Madden, but
Bears got the number
I don't
one
know.
pick from the Panthers, they got DJ Moore,
Yeah,
like in that
yeah,
trade. So like you can always get players in trades. Like we got Randy Moss for a fourth round pick.
right.
Like there's an opportunity that we can trade some of these trade for players with picks. Which candidly, if someone's proven and they're going to help our team, let's do it.
especially wide
Yeah, and
receiver.
it's I mean, and the franchise isn't really in like a win now mode, so getting kind of a superstar player in return for a first round pick, I don't know if it I don't know. It, the team might not be ready for that, and the player might be disgruntled if they kind of start off slow again. So
Jamar
there's
Chase, come
just
on over.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
Growth from the
I would love
trenches,
T
baby.
Higgins as we said before. T Higgins has had an incredible season. He's a little bit kind of injury ridden, I think, but when he's out there, he's a difference maker, and he would immediately slot into like our
Well,
number one receiver position.
he helped out whoever had him on their fantasy team this week.
Yeah, I mean that might be a reason why I'm a little bit more high on him.
Uh, little little horny for T. Higgins, huh?
Horny for T, that's right.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm hoping that they can do something to fix this because I think the Patriots have defeated us and just put us
Yeah.
in like it's just so crazy the drop off of this time of year. You used to be so excited because football season was actually starting,
Who
and
would have
now,
thunk it?
yeah, it's just been a complete 180 from literally the best team in the league to the worst. In a short span of 4 or 5 years. So it'll be interesting to see. There's if they don't clear house, I think that you're just extending an invitation to continue what's been the last 2 years at this point. And we're having these same conversations come next year. So we'll see what happens. We talked shortly about Karen. Karen should be coming on with us mid-January to do a season recap. So I got to go back and listen to our episode with her that we did and be like, well, boy, what did we say back then? But Patriots just have me defeated, and the team that keeps getting defeated is the Celtics as well, who we got to move
Oh,
on and talk about. Any wrap up thoughts on the passer? I think we got to talk green.
I think we've talked enough bats. Let's talk some
yeah.
green.
All right, let's talk green. So Celtics past couple weeks have kind of just been like coasting along, really not much
I like
noteworthy
this.
things, but they're in a bit of a midseason malaise. I think they're like 3-4, 4-4 over their last 8 games or so. Injuries have crept up and been an issue for the team. So let's talk a little bit about it in terms of the Celtics, who still, are in position to make the playoffs and go on a run, but they don't look like the Celtics of last year at this current moment.
Few quick thoughts.
So
I think for them, like they are definitely like a little more one-dimensional right now. They're shooting mostly threes. They've kind of forgotten about like the inside-outside game a little bit. So like I'm not worried. I do think this is a little bit like these teams go through it and there are the injuries. But I think that's part of it. They've just, very much fallen in love with the three, which is what they do, right? But I think some of the other things that they typically do with that, like defense and, you still got to score points in the paint. Those are two things that have kind of been a little bit lackadaisical recently, but I'm not worried. I think this is just kind of, I'd rather something like this happen now than later down the road. So concern level for me is low, not there yet.
Fair, Kraz, you had some thoughts.
Panic meter.
yeah, I personally like it. I mean, I don't know who said it, but somebody was saying something about complacency, and a lot of teams get complacent and they just kind of coast along and they don't really face much adversity, and then they get hit with adversity and don't really know what to do. So I'm kind of glad that this is happening, like Eric said, now rather than later on in the season, because there are slumps with every single team. I mean, last year the Celtics team is a little bit different with the fact that they had something to prove. They there was this constant talk of, do they split up the Jays? Can this team really do it? And last year's team, I think, was a team that was on a mission. I don't think it's the same exact team that it was this year. Not to say that they're not as talented and can't get the job done. I just think last year's team was a lot more hungrier than this year's team was. I mean, you can see that. I mean, they've already lost, what, 6 home games, and they lost 4 home games last year. So again, I'm not worried about it at all because it comes down to a 7 game series. And can this team get beat, 4 times before we beat them 4 times? And I don't think there's a team in the league that can beat us 4 times.
Yeah, and I mean, you can tell that other teams this year have definitely bolstered their rosters to beat the Celtics. Um, I mean, the teams in the East right now are pretty darn good. I mean, the Knicks are challenging the Celtics right now for the division. I know it's still early. We're in December, so that let's put a grain of salt on that. But like, you're behind the Cavaliers still right now.
J-Mets Cavaliers.
Right. So that's right. So I mean, your teams are when you give up wins like this, teams that are below you or above you, they kind of gain confidence and they see that if you put in a good effort against the Celtics, you can have good results with that. I think another reason why they're struggling is Derek White is just having a terrible shooting slump at the moment. Eric mentioned the inside out game. I'm worried about the inside game in general. With Porzingis kind of being in and out with injuries. And then, I mean, to rely on a guy like Luke Cornett and Neemias Queta, and I mean, they're fair players. They put in a lot of effort, but I mean, other teams they're gonna put out their stars and they're gonna start schooling those guys. So if you're not hitting threes and the inside game is looking weak, then that these games are gonna keep happening. They're gonna keep having kind of close games, but not being able
But
to put it away.
wouldn't you argue like some of that inside game has got to come from Brown and Tatum too? Like it's not just the
Yeah,
big guys. Like I think, they got to take a little bit of onus on that too. I know Jalen had a great game, not last game that he played against the Pacers, but the game before that. But he had a couple games before that, I think on Christmas Day, where he was pretty non-existent from the floor against, Philly. I don't necessarily always believe too that this is I think some of this is the Celtics self-inflicted problems, but I do think another factor of this too is they are now the hunted, right? Like they are the champion. So they're getting the best effort from every team every night. And that doesn't matter if it's a good team like the Knicks or the Cavs or, any of the other teams of that ilk. It's going to be everyone in between, the Miami Heats, even down to the Washington Wizards. We played the
And
Washington
Eric,
Wizards. No, but seriously, we
and
played
then,
the
but no,
Wizards
no, no, but
early.
you can see that, and that's what I'm agreeing with you on that. You can see it every single night when these other teams are coming in. It's you're like you're saying, you're getting 120% from that other team.
Yeah, when we played the Wizards, they are statistically the worst team defensively since they started keeping stats. This is true. At least when we played them, they had their best defensive effort of the season and held us under 100 points. So like, it's not just like a thing that it's all the Celtics. They're going to get the best from every team every single time they're playing.
Yeah, get the health playoffs. That's really all that matters. Be in a good position. Home court, I don't know, a game sorry, rather a series going seven with a team like Cleveland and them having home court, I'm not a huge fan of, but we really can't be worried about that at December. They got to get healthy and they got to have their full team, sort of playing and clicking because when they are, they're still the best team in the league by far. When they're rolling, and nobody can really do that. That Indiana game a couple nights ago, the first Indiana game, sort of showed when they're going, they're going. So Celtics continue on pretty much a game every other day over the course of January for them. That one thing I will say is, Tatum and Brown are carrying the load for what they can, but as we talked about, the secondary scoring and players have not performed as well as they have in
Drew,
the early
Drew,
season.
Drew
He's
shooting
been
has
out.
been
Shooting's been
not
yeah.
good.
terrible, and he's probably been out the last
Richard's
four
been
or five
off.
games. So
Yeah.
and the one thing that I've started to see, especially in the Twitterverse, is the Porzingis injury, and just his overall availability. Like, at what point? Like, I think we've all accepted it for a long time now, but at what point do you have to sort of say like this
Shut
guy
him
just
down.
isn't available when you need him the most? And with that injury that he had, did he come back too soon? Like, did he? It was talked about him coming back around Christmas time, and he came back at the beginning of December. Like, could he have benefited from those extra 3 or 4 weeks? I don't know. It doesn't. It's like eventually you got to get out there and see what you can do. But the guy is the fucking Tin Man. I mean, that guy
Yeah.
needs oil in his joints and ligaments after every fucking game.
Put him in bubble wrap until March.
I
Maybe.
Yeah,
agree.
I mean that's it's such a fine line because the player himself is going to want to play, and he probably has incentives in his contracts where he can make more money if he scores this amount of points or gets to the playoffs. So the player is itching to get back on the court, no matter even if he's not 100%. And then the doctors on the other side are saying no, 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 like you got to like chill, and so it's kind of like a happy medium. You have to meet in the middle. Um, but it is Kristaps Porzingis really is. He's kind of I don't know. I just feel like they really need to be careful with him. Maybe be a little bit more strict with minutes and things of that nature. Maybe not sit him completely or not play him back to backs, but give him some more minute restrictions just going forward into the season. But you're going to need him in the playoffs for sure.
No, they're gonna need him, and Horford's another year older, and not he has his moments and his nights, but you can't expect much out of a 38-year-old backup center at this point. And one player who struggled unbelievably is Hauser. Like he
Yeah.
has not had the
He's been
same
injured
sort of
too.
season. So they got to get healthy. They got to sort of metal along here as they continue to go. And hopefully they get back to playing 700 basketball where 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5 games they're winning. So they'll find their rhythm and shots will start to fall. Not
But
as
like Sam
Eric
said,
said.
like it's good to have some adversity.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
definitely.
mean, like you're not going to win every game, and to go through some slumps like this, kind of in the middle of the season, it's okay. I mean, you kind of figure out who you are as a team, and you kind of work through it. And I think Joe Mazzulla is kind of the coach that loves this adversity as well. So, well, I'm not again, like Eric said too. I'm not in panic mode at all right now. I think fans love to overreact when your team, especially the Celtics, are not winning every game, but. It's kind of just it is what it is. I think everything will be fine in the end.
Yeah, and you can't forget that there's obviously Brad Stevens watching from a bird's eye level that sort of sees what's going on, and he's not one that's afraid to sort of make a move to enhance the
That's right.
team. Not to say that we're at that point, but you have to think that he's evaluating that for sure. So
Try to get a big man in here or something.
yeah, maybe a backup center kind of role that's after. I don't know. You would probably see a player like a Luke Fournette or Tillman or someone like that out the door, even Kata as a prospect. But if it shores up the current team, I mean, look, the goal this year is to go win another championship and go back to
Absolutely.
back here. So whatever you got to do to make that happen, and if they got to change the makeup a little bit, so be it. So a team that and let's keep it this train moving along to a team that did change the makeup at the head coaching position about 6 weeks ago, I'd say, and since then has definitely turned a corner. Has definitely started to look better. Gabe, take us into the land of the Bruins and
Yeah.
everything going on with the black and gold.
Yeah, exactly like you said. Bruins are playing much better under Joe Sacco. The current record is 12-5-1 under him. So something's definitely clicking a little bit more. I mean, they still sit third in the Atlantic Division. Not really much as I know it's been a while since we've been on the podcast, but not much in the standings have changed per se. They did finish off that road trip against Edmonton. Getting a point. They did give up three unanswered goals to lose that game in overtime. That was a bit disappointing, but like we always talk about, the Bruins just need to keep collecting points. Um, Eric, I know I was looking at the standings today, and it's like Tampa Bay does have 4 or 5 games on the Bruins right now, and they're only a
It's
couple points
crazy.
behind. So that just makes me believe that this Bruins team is destined for a wild card position. Um, but as we know as hockey fans, it's just getting into the playoffs, and from there, that's that you can kind of the team could make it to the Stanley Cup for all we know. Who you just never know in the NHL playoffs, especially when you have um, a great goalie and Swayman who could get hot in the playoffs, and you never know what they could do at the trade deadline. Maybe they've become more of a buyer than seller just because of how well they've been playing. I mean, they've beat Washington, who's been having Eric. You said on the last time we were on that Washington's been having a great season. They did beat them without Ovechkin, but they
Mhm.
do have another chance tomorrow to
Yeah,
play and beat the Washington Capitals.
with Ovechkin.
Um, yeah,
Yeah,
with
he's coming back.
Ovechkin. So, I mean, speaking of Ovechkin, he recovered from what, a broken leg in 40 to 60 days. I mean, that's
Insane.
incredible. He's
Insane.
Uh,
he's a Russian machine.
He's getting
yeah,
that record this year. Like, there's no doubt about it.
he's out.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the warpath for that for sure. Um, I think
Um,
that. Go ahead, Gabe.
I just wanted a couple things to note. Fabian Lysell, left winger prospect, made his debut in their last win against Columbus. He didn't really have much of an effect in the game, I would say. He was kind of just getting his feet wet, but he was plus 1 point on the ice for one of the nice goals. Um, so I think I think things again are trending in the right direction. But there's still those like disappointing crap losses in there that just like make you furious. So yeah, that's my Bruins thoughts right now.
Well, and I think it's not even just the disappointing crap losses. I think it's the disappointing crap special teams. Like the power play and the penalty kill are not kind of where they need to be. And I think that's, a big reason why they are where they are. Like, and I know, Sacco has had a big impact on this team, but I also think like some of these things have persisted despite who the head coach is. So those are things and areas that they still need to work on. I do think overall I am feeling more positive than I have over, you know, the majority of the season, but there's still a lot of room left for improvement. So
Yeah,
I
and you've been a tough one to please, Eric. You're
I have been.
probably
I
the
have been.
toughest one to please with this Bruins team. So when you make a positive statement about them, that's when I'll know that they are on a roll, an official roll.
Was that not positive for me, or was that just negative the entire time?
Well, no, I feel like I don't know. I feel
That
like
was glass half full.
Hey,
you
I think
speak the truth.
Korpisalo has been the best silver lining of the season so far. He ended up being a great pickup, and I think Olmark has not looked so great up in Ottawa. So good job on Don Sweeney up
Oh,
there.
get out of here. That way that all
That was
unfolded
no
was
sarcasm
absolute,
there, right?
yeah, absolute bullshit the way that all unfolded. Look, I think the Bruins, since the coaching change, have been sort of the team that we expected them to be this season. A team that's going to be in the playoff mix, that's going to have nights where they look really good, and they're going to have some nights where they play the Columbus Blue Jackets and just get their fucking doors blown off. But kudos to them for coming back that next game and sort of returning the favor. So, look, the Bruins should make the playoffs. They need, I think, some more offensive firepower. Lindholm coming back on the back line probably in another couple weeks will help fortify that. So, they have a challenge. But this is the sort of team I think that, it's a bit more consistent. They still have issues, as we've mentioned. They got to fix some things. They're not perfect by any means, but they've turned that corner from being like, what the fuck is going on here, to okay, like let's settle in here to what should be a solid season and get to the playoffs and see if they can make any sort of run. So uh you got to give them credit for that, because the first 6 to 8 weeks of the year were absolutely nutty. Any
Yeah.
Bruins wrap up before we hit on some baseball off season?
Um, I think just like you said that they need to have a good trade deadline. They really could use another top six forward. I think the loss of DeBrusk to free agency last year is kind of another reason why the offense has maybe been a bit slower this year. Not that he was great by any means, but he could at least put the puck in the back of the net. So if they could trade, I don't know, some maybe prospects or something in that line to get a top six forward, that I think that would really help and propel this team into a good playoff situation.
I think besides the top six forward, they also need an offensive defender, right? Like if you think about all their defenders outside of McAvoy, they're not really known for putting the puck in goal, right? So getting someone else in the back end that can score too could also be helpful. I do agree, top six forward, I think is probably the higher priority, but that's a nice to get if we can get that too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
so work to be done, but a turn of the corner for the bees, and we'll turn the corner into the baseball off season. Red Sox have made a move here in the past couple weeks since we've last spoken. So Sam, tell us about the move and some other things that have happened across the league.
Definitely. So, I mean, if you guys want to take Nick Pivetta and it's $21 million, and the fact that if we kept him, we would have had to give up a draft pick, or we sign Walker Bueller for the same amount of money and not give up a draft pick, who are you guys gonna go for
Yeah, I'm taking Walker Bueller all day.
all day long?
Walker,
I mean
Walker,
that
Walker.
that that,
Bueller?
that was a big win. That was a big win in my eyes. I didn't see that one coming. To have him be our number three guy takes a lot of pressure off of the younger guys. It adds to our depth too in the pitching. You got to realize Cutter Crawford, Tanner Houck. This is the first time that they went 150 innings plus, so it's really going to help them a lot. There's already been talk of a potential six-man rotation, so we'll see. I mean, like I said, of those three guys that I had spoke about, Santander, Teoscar Hernandez, and Bregman, Teoscar's back with the Dodgers. We all saw that coming. 3 years, $66 million. They're just going to keep giving out crazy contracts. Sasaki already has a backdoor deal with the Dodgers, so it's just like, that's who we got to compete with. And we took one of their guys from them, which is pretty big.
Yeah, they said I was hearing reports that the Red Sox weren't even really close or in serious talks with Teoscar Hernandez. So maybe it was just a matter of figuring out the contract with the Dodgers the whole time. And then also Corbin Burns, another great pitcher, one of the top free agent pitchers on the market this year, signs with the Arizona Diamondbacks.
That helps us out big. We don't have to face him in the
Yeah,
AL
get
East.
him in the NL, so that's good. I don't know.
He's
I
from
mean, there's still,
Arizona, so
yeah. I mean, there's still some names out there. Bregman, like you said, and Santander. Not the bank is still out there. So, um, I don't know. There's definitely still moves to be made, and still definitely,
Pete
I'm hopeful for more
Alonso.
trades as well.
They need to bring in a right-handed bat to fortify the lineup, I think, and to give them some more sort of balance to the lineup. So, not I don't know. I didn't want Tyler O'Neill back, but I sure didn't mind him as a DH that was just yanking home runs last year, you know. So they need to replace that kind of player. I do think health will be better. And going back to what Kraus said off the top about this was a six-man rotation, which I'm actually in huge favor of for a few reasons. The reason being is that it will stretch these guys out, I think, as you get to the further into the season with some of these guys that haven't gone the full season. So you get a little bit more of that. And the other thing is, inevitably at some point, one of those pitchers is going down. So it's going to become a five-man rotation. So why not use the depth in April and May, and then eventually see who isn't performing well, who goes to the bullpen. You might as well start off with that. You can always make that change.
You
and
could
the
also get a Scherzer, or a Verlander that's out there just sitting out there too.
I don't think from a pitching standpoint that they're going to add
I don't
another
think they need him.
starter. I think Crochet. I'm pretty.
I feel a
I'm
lot more
Crochet's awesome.
comfortable about their pitching now.
yeah, pleasantly surprised with Walker Bueller. Like he obviously the past 2 years hasn't been what he was 2020, 2021 sort of time frame, but his capabilities are definitely there. And I think he's a kind of player that will embrace the Boston sort of atmosphere. They do have an option on him for a second year, which I liked as well. If he has a good year, they can extend that offer to him. So we'll see. They need that right-handed bat, but Hot Stove has been like overall pretty solid for baseball this year. Like the fact that a lot of players have signed. I think Bregman is probably the biggest name that's out there still on
Alonso's still out there,
on
which
the
is a big
market.
name too.
yeah,
Alonso
Yeah.
for sure. So
the
more
Tigers. I was
more
gonna say the Tigers seem to be in the front running, but with an infield already of Gleyber Torres, and you also have Javi Baez over at shortstop. It's tough to see Bregman over at third base. But again, AJ Hinch was managing for Houston, so at that point, really anything can happen.
so
Not a bad point.
a question I have to ask, based on where we currently stand, where does the Fenway Five stand? Because have they surpassed? Did Walker Bueller put it over the top where the moves that they've made this offseason have satisfied the need? I think they haven't really shelled out that much money overall on free
No.
No,
agents this offseason.
just
So
21
I think
million, and a little bit more.
there's more to be put out there, but Fenway Five. Just quick thoughts on where if we're going to be bundling up in a couple weeks here or not.
Right-handed bat.
No, I don't think so. I think the Fenway Five is. I feel like we're pretty tame right now. The Walker Bueller signing
I think
definitely got us back in our seats a little bit, but they're still not spending money, and that's the one big issue we have with John Henry right now is the lack of spending. And I mean, I don't know. I'm sitting right now.
Come on, simmer.
I'm personally not in the Fenway Five mode quite yet. I do think that there's a lot that they can do via the trade market. They can acquire and increase the payroll that way. John Henry just doesn't need to shell the money through free agency. He can do it through the trade avenue too. I'll be happy with that. But I think I'm looking more likely like we're going to be the Foxboro Five right now than the Fenway Five. So I would say Fenway Five is kind of, I wouldn't say on hiatus. We're on a low simmer. They could always increase to a boil. So keep your
Back
head on a
burner.
swivel, John Henry.
That's
But
right.
we may be taking this whole kit and caboodle down to Foxboro.
Maybe that's a great way to sort of wrap things up in terms of around town, because the Red
Caboodle.
Sox have definitely improved the roster. Not the way that we thought, but with some notable
You hear that,
news.
Patriots? You hear
Yeah,
that? They improved the roster.
And the Patriots certainly need to do the same. So, good chatter about all the different teams and stuff going on. We sort of recapped the past 2 weeks there, and how each team has performed. And we're going to keep this train moving along. And it's Big E's favorite segment.
Oh yeah, it's time for my favorite segment. Time for Yao and oh yeah.
And it's a very
Very nice.
special New Year's Eve, yeah, oh yeah edition. So instead of sort of rattling off things over the past couple weeks, New Year's Eve is sort of going to be like our theme here, and we're just going to riff here about New Year's Eve. So we got a couple bullet points to help steer our conversation, but sort of personal stories, anything that sticks out to you guys over the years about your best New Year's Eve, your worst New Year's Eve. Is it overrated? Is it underrated? What sort of food do you eat on New Year's Eve? Do you stay in? Do you go out? So there's a lot to talk about when it comes to this holiday, and I think a lot of people have differing opinions. So give your 60 Jesus fucking Christ, 60 to 90 second take, and then we'll keep moving around. Crash, you look like you're chomping at the bit.
No, I was just gonna say, as far as like New Year's go, I think the biggest one has to be the year 2000, right? I mean,
That's a good
everybody
point.
was bugging. Everyone was like, "Holy shit! All the computers need to shut down. The whole
Yeah.
world's gonna fucking end. Everybody's gonna die," and nothing happened. That for me, I mean,
The clock went to
that's what
zeros.
I think of when like as far as like New Year's Eve that stand out. But really, for me, I would have to say my best one probably was last year at that Ripe concert. Shout out to
Who's
Ripe.
that?
If you guys don't listen to Ripe, go listen to Ripe. They fucking rock. Josh, we were like right next to the stage and like right underneath the balloons, and it was just, being on certain things. It was just, it was great to
Life.
just,
Being
it
on
was,
life.
yeah. No, that was probably just being around with you guys and having our whole group there for me probably was my favorite
Yeah,
one
no,
so
that
far.
was that. I mean, I was thinking about some other New Year's. You brought up 2000. I remember being in Boston for that. Probably like one of my first really New Year's memories. I think I was 9 or 10 at the time. And then that Ripe show last year was incredible. As you said, it's there's a lot that happened at that Ripe show, and a lot of fun that was had. But Big E, Gabe, your thoughts on New Year's Eve and things that stick out over the years?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, now that you reminded me of the New Year's Eve last year at Ripe, I would definitely say that anytime
How could
you
I
go to
forget?
a
Oh,
anytime you go to a concert or any type of live music event for New Year's, I think is a huge plus for me. I don't love going to like house parties and bars and bouncing around. In that aspect, I think New Year's is overrated. It's a excuse to bump up the prices at bars, and you got to buy tickets, and everything just becomes more expensive. Travel is a pain in the ass, and I'd rather just hang with my homies with some Chinese food and play some fun games and have a few drinks, maybe a few puffs. Like that's all we need in life these days. I'm getting older. I don't need to binge drink and kill my liver right now.
Amen. Amen. I'm gonna give a huge oh yeah to last year's Ripe concert on New Year's Eve. Excellent, excellent New Year's Eve. One of my favorites. I'm in agreement with Gabe. I want to be out like doing something live entertainment for something New Year's, or I'd rather do something small at home with maybe a few friends, very low key, Chinese food, pizza, something like that. Not necessarily in that order. Chilling, kind of hanging out, nothing
crab rangoons.
pretty low stakes, right? What I would say my worst New Year's Eve. This is a Yao. It actually was fun too. So I will say, like, even though it was a bad time, it was still a Yao. Still a good time. I was with a bunch of friends up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. This was like almost 15 years ago. So young 20s. I drank like an entire bottle of champagne before I went to a bar and ended up barfing at the bar right in front of like someone behind the bar. No one saw me, and I moved around. And I was like, someone was like, "Oh, we found vomit at the bar," and I acted like, "Oh my God, like that's crazy." Mood rallied.
Oh my God, that's
Right on the
crazy.
bar, you couldn't even get outside to boot in the lot.
Nope, nope.
My
Just
God.
did
It was
Yeah.
it was worse than the meatloaf, huh?
But I never
Any
got caught. I never got caught.
any New Year's Eve where
Until now.
you're throwing up is not a good New Year's Eve.
No, no,
Yeah.
no fun throwing up on New Year's Eve. No, that we've talked extensively about the Ripe concert, but that sticks out. I agree. Some sort of live entertainment, I think really enhances it. And then, or being in a small group, whether that's, at somebody's house or going out and maybe doing sort of like a nice dinner that's more like you're just going out to go out and have a good time and not necessarily because it's New Year's. Um, the days of the bar hopping on New Year's and whatnot, I don't even think are things that we're even interested in anymore. As we've talked
Leave
about.
that to the fraternity days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people that still want to do that. I think it's a fun holiday to like have something in the middle of winter that everybody is sort of celebrating, and everybody has the following day off, which always has an
Thank God.
unbelievable slate of college football games, which obviously this year is the case with the college football playoffs. So and oh yeah, with that, we'll talk about that on the next episode. Uh, Hopefully those quarterfinal games are good stuff. I'm trying to think of other New Year's Eves that sort of stick out over the course of time. Definitely a couple house parties down in Narragansett. That was always a good time to be
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm renting
Oh,
a
no
house
one's
in.
around. Let's just throw a banger. Okay.
Yeah, I
Twist
have.
my arm.
Let's go get a keg.
Um,
Okay.
I'm renting a house in a beach town. Imagine a day like today. We could have been down there. 60 fucking degrees
I
would have
know.
would have
Beautiful
been.
day.
You could have had a darty on the deck for Christ's sakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't
I
want
mean,
anyone falling off my deck.
my biggest nightmare is like going to Times Square or
Oh
like
God.
No,
Oh,
or
thank you. You
even
couldn't pay
going
me.
into Boston. Like
I don't like going to Times
exactly.
Square on a normal day, let alone
let alone New Year's
like New
Eve.
Year's Eve.
That's my biggest nightmare for sure. I would never, you would never find me at one of those ball
I'd pee
drop
my
events.
pants.
I mean, that truly makes no sense to me, other than the fact that it's something that was just broadcasted on TV, and it has like this sort of appeal of what America's New Year's Eve looks like. But holy shit,
Yeah,
from an actuality standpoint, what a terrible, terrible thing
what
to
a
do.
nightmare.
There's not a porta party in sight.
No, you're literally caged in. I think, like, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
from
once.
from 10 in
Yeah.
the morning until fucking midnight without taking a
People
piss.
camp out.
Fuck
Yeah,
that.
well,
I'd rather
that's
be in my sweatpants.
yeah,
Yeah.
we know that.
Your comfort sweatpants.
That's right. I'll talk more about that hopefully soon.
Oh, maybe anything else New Year's, boys? Anything else that sticks out? Otherwise, we're gonna
Hors
wrap this
d'oeuvres.
baby up. Yeah, good food holiday. Good food holiday
Oh,
overall.
what? Yeah, what type of? I know we touched on this a little bit, but if you're at home, what's the food that you're getting for New Year's?
So can I chime
Pigs
in?
in a blanket.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Chinese food, delicious. We've talked about Chinese and our love for Chinese food on this podcast plenty of times. But I think there is one thing with Chinese restaurants on New Year's. They're too heavily inundated, and the quality might get sacrificed depending on where you're getting it from compared to just a normal night. And that might be a little bit of a conspiracy theory, but I do think that it applies. So Chinese food, yes, but cautious. Proceed with caution. But other things, pigs in a blanket. What else? What else? What else?
Stuffed mushrooms.
Anything, sliders,
Egg
buffalo
rolls.
chicken dip, anything you can get your hands
Deviled
on.
eggs.
Queso.
It's
Queso. No, cheese and
Like
queso.
you really,
yeah.
I feel like New Year's is just you. This can go with whatever the hell you want.
Balls to the wall. Pie. Ice cream. Clam chowder.
oh boy.
Lobster roll.
Not necessarily in that order.
If you ate all that, you'd be barfing on a bar. You'd be barfing on a bar. No barfing on a bar for any of us on New Year's. I think it's going to be a pretty low key evening for us, but for all the listeners out there who are listening on New Year's Day, we hope that the last hour either helped cure your hangover or maybe gave you a pounding headache. Who the fuck knows? But regardless, we hope you enjoyed the episode. The Crafts are approaching the penalty box and lots of games coming up. I had too many to even list out what they are, when they are. Check your fucking apps. Any parting words, fellas?
Stay
Yes,
classy,
drive
filthy
safely.
animals.
Drive
Yes.
safely on the roads. Remember,
Call an Uber.
AAA will tell you.
$150 Uber, way better than the alternative of driving home and the
If
potential
you're going to a
consequences.
funeral, Christ.
Don't kill
Call
anyone
me.
out there.
Gabe will
Well,
not
You
pick
could.
you up.
it's a good message. It's a good message to the people.